I want to tell you about a day that I went all in with God. You see, I've prayed and I had spent time in the Word. I sought counsel. I had asked for prayer from others. I sought financial support. I resigned a good position in a great church, and I put up my house for sale. I packed or sold or gave away everything that I owned, and I moved my wife and my 5 daughters to Orlando, Florida to start a ministry. I had a business plan. Well, I had a website. I had helpers. I had what I believe was God-given dream and a clear assignment. And I thought I had faith. The question I hadn't answered yet was, faith in what? Because the days after we arrived, just days after there was no turning back, it happened. Banks began to fail, the economy tanked, the sale of our house fell through, donors called and said they couldn't follow through on their promises, and I ran out of money. I was under attack. And I hadn't named them yet, but the wolves were at the door. They had showed up, and all of them, at the same time, in the dark and in the storm. The wolves of fear, fatigue, frustration, scarcity. And I want to say something right here, right now, before we go any further. The wolves are real. It's not a metaphor. It's not a self-help categories. They are not concepts that you journal about. They are real. And they are out to eat your lunch. They are aggressive. And they're after the assignment that God has placed in your life. If you're watching this right now and you know what I'm talking about, well, you've been in the storm. If the thing that you're sure of that God has called you to is being surrounded by chaos and threats and silence, and then stay with me, because I found myself living in a very familiar Bible story, and I think you might be living in it too. In Mark chapter 4, we find that Jesus had spent the full day teaching. He had taught the parables of the sower, the lamp under the basket, the growing seed along the way, and then the mustard seed. It was a full day of ministry. And when evening came, he told the disciples something simple. Let's cross over to the other side of the sea. That was the assignment. Cross over to the other side. He didn't say, let's see how far we can get tonight. He didn't say, let's try to beat the storm. He said, cross over. Clear assignment, clear destination. Now, before this moment, these men have watched Jesus command evil spirits to come out of a man in the synagogue. They'd seen Peter's mother-in-law healed. They'd seen diseases healed and demons cast out. They saw a man with leprosy being cleansed, a paralytic being forgiven, taking up his mat and walking, withered hand restored, a servant healed from a distance. Jesus didn't even have to be there, and a girl raised from the dead. Before the storm, Jesus had already demonstrated his authority over demons and disease and disability and distance and death. And then they got in the boat, and the wolves showed up on the Sea of Galilee that night. A great windstorm arose. Waves were breaking into the boat. The boat was filling up. These professional fishermen, men who knew the sea, they were terrified. They had tried everything they knew to try. And Jesus is asleep on a cushion at the back of the boat. So they woke him up. And here's the question they asked. And I want you to hear it because it might sound familiar to you. Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die? That's not a question, that's an accusation. And I know what that sounds like because I asked the very same one. It was a different address, it was a different century, but it was the exact same storm. You remember that trip to Orlando? I was walking in Winter Garden, Florida late in 2008. I was praying. Well, I wasn't really praying. I was ranting. I was walking along yelling at God loud enough that anybody passing by may have assumed that I had completely lost my mind. And somewhere in the middle of that rant, I heard a droning sound overhead. I looked up, and there was a Skyrider. There was white smoke against the Florida blue sky. And there was a smiley face, and under it was these words. It said, God loves you. Smile? God loves you? Now, I want to tell you that that softened me, that want to tell you that I stopped and I took a breath and I felt the peace of God wash over me right then and there on the sidewalk. That's not what happened. I was still angry. I was still scared. I still had 5 daughters and a wife and no money and a dream that looked like it was dying in the Florida hot sun. And then the skywriter kept going. 2 more words took shape in the sky above me. Trust Jesus. And I stopped walking because I realized at that moment that God had just done something. He didn't open with a command. He opened with, I love you. I see you. I love you. He answered the question underneath my rant before he gave me a path forward. Because the question underneath every storm is never about the money or the ministry or the plan falling apart. The question underneath is always, does he love me? Does he see me? Does he care? The smiley face answered that question. Then came trust Jesus. And now it meant something entirely different. It wasn't a bumper sticker anymore. It wasn't a rebuke. It was a path offered by someone who had just reminded me that I was loved. And that's when I heard it clearly. I was standing on the sidewalk in Winter Garden, Florida, having the same conversation that the disciples had in the back of the boat. Don't you care that we're going to die? And God, through a plain and a smiley face and a couple of words in the white smoke, was giving me the same answer he gave them. I love you. I'm here. Now trust me. Here's what I've learned since that morning in Winter Garden. The storm doesn't change God's instructions. It doesn't change the destination. It only reveals the disciples' heart. The wolves are what are doing the revealing. Let me name them for you because you can't fight what you can't name. First wolf is fear. Fear distorts everything. On the sea that night, fear distorted his word. They forgot the crossover was the assignment, not survive. Fear distorts his character. He's asleep. It looked like indifference. Fear distorts his presence. They acted as if the storm was the greatest reality in the boat, as if Jesus wasn't in the boat. Fear lies. It takes what God said and rewrites it in the voice of the storm. Then the wolf of fatigue. Fatigue depletes your reserves before the critical moment. The disciples had just returned from their ministry trip. They managed crowds all day. They'd given everything they had, and then the night crossing became the breaking point. Fatigue doesn't just make you tired. It makes you forget what you know when you need it most. Frustration shows up as futility, bailing the water you can't outpace, professional fishermen in danger of drowning, and Jesus asleep. Frustration says, nothing that I'm doing is working, and the person who should be helping isn't. Failure says the assignment is over. They can't complete the crossing. In their minds, they had failed, and failure left unnamed will make you stop before you reach the other side. And then there's that fifth wolf. Boy, he's a sneaky one. This one I call the scarcity. The one that says, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I didn't come from enough. Those statements are in direct defiance against God's love. Because God doesn't design things to fail. He doesn't call people he hasn't equipped, and he doesn't give an assignment without a provision attached. God's vision carries God's provision. Now they thought the storm was the greatest reality in the boat. It wasn't. Think about what was actually happening in that boat that night. Same storm, same waves breaking over the side, same wind, same darkness. And Jesus was at rest. He had found peace in the storm. He didn't need to be rescued from the storm. He was the one who calms the storm. Not because the storm wasn't real. The storm was real. The wolves are real. The water in the bottom of the boat is real. But Jesus was connected to a reality that the disciples had lost sight of. He was abiding. He was rooted. He was in perfect communion with the Father. And that communion produced peace in that storm that storm simply could not touch. Same boat, completely different reality. And here's what he says to you, not to the disciples in that moment, but to you right here, right now, whatever storm you're in. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. He's in your boat. He's always been in your boat. And the greatest reality in the storm is not the chaos, not the money that ran out, not the plan that had collapsed, not the wolves at the door. The greatest reality is the one that is at rest in the back of the boat. The one who finds peace in the storm. The one who doesn't need to be rescued from it. The one who calms it. And when you finally see that, when you finally stop staring at the wolves long enough to look at him, something happens that no productivity framework can manufacture. You get awe. That's what the disciples got when the storm stopped. Mark tells us that they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who is this man? Even the wind and the waves obey him." That's not casual wonder. That's the moment when fear finally meets the right object. That's the beginning of everything. That's exactly where clarity starts. Not in strategy, not in a better plan, not in trying harder, in awe. Clarity comes when you stop staring at the storm long enough to remember who's in the boat with you. The assignment hasn't changed, the destination hasn't changed. The fog lifts when your eyes go back to him. Certain is what follows. Faith is certainty of what is real today. Hope is certainty of what will happen tomorrow. And love binds it all together. Your past is forgiven, your present is held, and your future is certain. Faith, hope, and love. Those are not devotional thoughts. Those are decisions that you make in the storm. From clarity and certainty comes courage, the willingness to re-engage, the calling, even when the water is still choppy. Not when the storm is gone and it's all over, in the middle of it. Courage gives way to capacity, the ability to actually do the work God designed you for and to do at a level that you couldn't access when the wolves are running the room. And capacity leads to completion. It's not the end of the road. It's the threshold of the next assignment. Every summit becomes the base camp for the next climb. From glory to glory. That's my 5C system, but it's not a productivity system. They're there as a path back from the wolves to the work. And they begin in awe in the rediscovery of the greatest reality in the boat is not the storm. It's him. So back to Winter Garden. I just had a sense that God was speaking to my heart that day. It was after the Skywriter. It was after I confessed. When I finally stopped yelling at God and started listening, I heard deep in my spirit, what do you have? Not what did you lose, or why is the storm here, or not how much farther do you have to go. What do you have? And I said, I have a house and a Bible. That's what I came up with. And I sensed that he was saying to me, that's enough. I want to give you the same question today. Not a journaling prompt. It's the right now tool that I want you to use before this video is over, before you close this tab, before you go back to whatever is waiting for you. Write down your answer to this. What do you have right now, today? Not what you've lost, not what you're afraid of or that you have to go back to, not what the storm took. What do you have? Because here's what I know. The disciples in the boat had everything they needed. They had each other. They had the sea that they knew. They had the assignment. And they had Jesus asleep in the back of the boat. A house and a Bible is enough. Whatever you have right now, it's enough because God, the one who sent you, said to cross over, is still in the boat with you. He still finds rest in the storm. He's saying the same thing that he said to me in that white smoke above my head. I love you. I'm here. Now trust me. The wolves are real, and so is the one who calms them. If you're a Christian leader carrying more than you are designed to carry alone, if you're outwardly successful but inwardly restless, if the wolves have been eating your lunch, I want to help you face them and find a path back to clarity. I wrote a small ebook, Facing Your Inner Wolves. You can get it free at the link here. If you want to talk, if you want to have a clarity conversation too, I'd be honored to have that conversation with you. That's also in the link here. The storm hasn't changed your assignment. It hasn't changed your destination. It reveals your heart. And that's exactly where God starts. I'm Phil Johnson, and this is Awesome Life Coaching.